All right. Hey there, everyone. This is Alex Mitchell from Agents of Change Continuing Education. And today I'm joined by a financial expert, Teddy Wynn, who's going to help walk us through a really exciting topic, one I'm very passionate about around financial wellness for social workers. And so, really we want to focus in on just a piece of that today. And we're really excited to cover it together. And that's going to be around overspending, which, as Teddy's going to talk about more, is the biggest reason social workers stay broke and can't overcome, that challenge. And so, many social workers find themselves in debt coming out of school, loans, credit card debt, car loans even, and it feels like it's this insurmountable hole to get out of. So Teddy's going to walk us through some different strategies today for making that more attainable, helping you work step by step, getting out of that hole, and really achieving the goals you have in your life. So Teddy, just by way of a little bit of background, and I'll give it over to him to talk about himself a little bit more in a second here, but he is a coach and social worker. And really, he's focused on this problem for a while through his company. And so he works with social workers. He works with folks really trying to overcome these financial challenges day in and day out. And so he's really an expert in this space. And we're excited to tap into his knowledge as we go through this conversation today. So coming to the next kind of slide here, we just want to give a little bit of background on who we are. So I've already told you a little bit about Teddy, but he's going to share a little bit more in a second. Again, I'm Alex. For those who are familiar with Agents of Change, I'm Megan's wife, the founder of Agents of Change. So we founded Agents of Change together, coming up on 5 years ago. More recently, we've gotten really involved in continuing education, just helping social workers build their skills, become more informed, be more successful. That's really been our true focus over the past years. We built out Agents of Change continuing education. Relative to this topic, though, I've lived in this financial world before too. Teddy and I were just talking about this. I got my start in my career in financial advising, have worked at a few different banks. So I'm really passionate about this space. I'm passionate about helping individuals achieve their financial goals in their life and honestly making it fun and enjoyable. It doesn't have to be this overwhelming experience, that you have to pull out all these papers and, kind of budget down to, not being able to afford the things you want in life. You can come up with systems, you can manage these things, you can make it enjoyable. So that's just a little bit on me before we jump into our topic here. But I'll hand the mic over to Teddy to describe just a little bit about himself and his company, Lion Lamb.
Yeah, so my name is Teddy. I'm a financial coach, but I'm actually also a social worker. That's my training. I graduated with my BSW a couple years ago, and I started Lion Lamb Money as a mission to help people really have hope with their money. Break out of the paycheck to paycheck cycle is what you typically hear, but just oftentimes money is very overwhelming and stuff. And I've worked with clients in the social work space with homelessness, mental health, child welfare, currently working with, foster teenagers and young adults transition to adulthood, equip them with those financial literacy skills or other life skills like that. And just being able to take all those concepts and all those skills from social work and translate it to personal finances, just being able to see the transformation in people's lives, like, oh my goodness, I'm not burnt out anymore. I can make career changes and all that stuff. I love working with that. And so, yeah, as a financial coach, my biggest thing is helping people stop overspending. I help them just implement effective money skills and habits. And a lot of these skills you probably are learning through your continuing ed classes and, probably your social work program, all that stuff. And also just building a plan for a life of financial freedom. What does financial freedom look like? What does it feel like? It is attainable, and I want you to have hope that it is possible, especially even as a social worker. Even if you never crack 6 figures a year, it's absolutely possible. And I hope that, this podcast, this video will give you a little insight into one of the biggest barriers, which is overspending, and how you can start making progress with that. But yeah, my passion is really about creating real, lasting life change, not like a fad diet, not some trend, but something that really sticks with you long term. Because, outside the professional space, my personal background in addiction recovery is what brought me into social work. My passion for that life change, for those services, the groups and counseling and all that stuff is what changed my life. And I hope to bring that same hope, those same systems to you, obviously the viewer, or the listener, if you're just listening to audio, just to know that there is hope out there. You can do it. And if you take control of your circumstances and financial situation, there are no limits to what you can do. So,
Yeah, that's great, Teddy. And I think honing in on one thing you said that really stuck out to me. I know this can seem daunting to folks who don't think about finances as much, but I think one thing you mentioned that I think we'll come back to a few times throughout the conversation today is social workers already have a lot of these skills, right? It's just kind of applying some of the skills they have in a little bit different of a space. They already have a lot of those skills they need to be successful in their financial lives. So it's not starting from zero. It's kind of taking those skills they already have, shifting them a little bit over, and just as you said, having some of these systems, some of these check-ins, to kind of keep them on track. Just putting a little bit of their brain space into this financial world. Only a little bit goes a long way, from what I've found.
exactly.
So just to kind of outline our conversation today before Teddy and I really jump into it with questions and discussion, we have a few objectives that we want to kind of keep top of mind throughout today. So one is what Teddy just kind of teed up there, right? The spending behaviors, really one of the biggest issues that social workers face with their money management. That's going to be one of our objectives, is helping you identify how those spending behaviors are actually maybe being triggered, right, by some of the stress that's happening in your career. We know, of course, social work's a place of high stress at times, and we want to make sure those patterns and make sure they don't spill over into finances, or we're recognizing when they do. The next one we'll cover is really just understanding, financial wellness. I think that's actually probably where we're going to start this conversation. Is just that's really the goal, is getting to this state of financial wellness. So we'll talk much more about what that means, and why it's important to prioritize this. What other benefits it has beyond our finances, having this state of financial wellness. And then finally, one objective is to, create a financial plan that's realistic. I think that's in all caps for a reason here. We can all come up with plans, right? That we want to have, houses on the beach in Malibu and be driving Ferraris, but, having goals that are not attainable, it actually works against you, right? It kind of is demotivating. It is not fun, right? To see a goal that's not achievable. It's a lot more fun to be able to set these goals and regularly achieve them. And so this realistic financial plan is part of that. And, Teddy today is going to give us some immediate steps that you can take to really start to build that plan and execute on it, which again can drive this positive feelings and feedback loop that keeps it fun, enjoyable, and keeps you up with it as well. So those are some of objectives today. I think, without going through all the details on here, hopefully we've conveyed a bit about why this topic is important. If you think personally, so kind of think about you personally, you probably want to have, right, financial stability. You want to be able to retire in the future. You want to be able to live a sustainable financial life, right? These things are important to most people. We're guessing that's probably why you tuned in to this podcast or this talk today, is those things are important to you. So don't think we have to oversell you on these important things, but really we want to make sure you can achieve these important things too as well. So, financial stability and mental health is incredibly important. We'll talk about how financial stress can at times spill over into, personal stress, mental health, sustainability I just mentioned, and then healthy relationships. I don't think we talk about this enough, but, not having financial wellness can cause challenges in our relationships, whether that's with our families, our significant others, even at work. It can cause challenges if you're not financially well. So again, we hopefully are conveying why this is important. We're going to give you the steps today to kind of start to address some of these challenges if you have them, if these resonate with you. So I think with that, now that we've kind of covered our objectives today and some of the kind of importance of this topic, I'd like to start off with a really high level question for you, Teddy. We've said financial wellness a lot of times today. Probably I'm guessing the people listening to this call might all have a different opinion of what that means to them. What does it mean to you, Teddy? What is financial wellness, and why is it important in your estimation?
Yeah, like I can give you probably a textbook definition, but really, we talk a lot, especially as social workers, we talk about mental wellness, we talk about physical wellness, and so financial health, financial wellness is very similar. It's all about how are my relationships with my work, with my money, with all this stuff, how is that impacting the rest of my life? Because money innervates all aspects of our life, our marriage, our work, our health, physical and mental. And financial wellness really is all about, that balance with all those areas of your life, right? Having having a plan with your money, having a vision with where you want to take it can absolutely settle some of the anxiety we may have in the other areas. And so the one way I like to put it is that financial wellness isn't about being rich. It's not about being wealthy, which it can be, like that can be part of it. But it's really about having a rich life and rich relationships, like I said, with your work, with your personal finances, with your personal relationships, your mental health, just like with yourself too. And that is just like, as we already covered, it impacts your mental health all around. It will impact how you show up for your clients, how you show up for yourself, how you show up for your family. My tagline for my financial coaching practice is that I help you take control of your money to be your best self at home and at work. Because if your money's in disorder, chances are the other areas of your life may be too. So, yeah, to really talk about what it looks like and what it feels like, I'm sure many of you know, or at least know someone that is overwhelmed with their money, overwhelmed with living paycheck to paycheck, or seeing just payment after payment come out for car loans, which are like $500 a month, student loans that may be $600 or $700 a month. Of course, you got your rent, you got all these things, and you're probably thinking like, what am I going to do for retirement? What if my car breaks down? Like, I'm not covered and all this stuff. And that stress is so, deteriorating for, you know, long lasting careers in social work, because at work, you're giving a lot of yourself to your clients, you're giving a lot of yourself to your team. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like later on. But yeah, as social workers, most of us don't have any professional training in personal finances. I mean, even personally, like growing up, you may not have had the most functional family. You may not have had the most functional parents to really guide you on what healthy finances look like. You may have ended on one side of the spectrum and save everything, never spend, and everything is all about scarcity, or you on the other side of the spectrum where everything is, you only live once, you every month, every dollar you get in, you got to spend it because you don't know when the next one's coming. And just having these two ends of the spectrum can really challenge us on, oh wait, like there is another way to handle money. There is another way to actually have healthy relationships with our spending behaviors ourselves. One of the things I'll touch on later is the power of intentional spending. And I think that'll be really cool to touch on, just as a flip to overspending and just complacency with our money.
Yeah, I think that's great, Teddy. I think I wanted to definitely agree with you on some of those major points there. I think we kind of have a failing in our system today where we don't educate people on finances. It's,
Mhm.
we put everyone through, pre-calculus and trigonometry and things like that, which I don't
Uh,
know about you, I'm not using those every day, but
mm,
finances, we do kind of a disservice in our education in almost all schools and colleges that I've talked with. Is, we just don't kind of give some of these basic skills. And as you mentioned, it's not just about the dollars and cents and the budgeting. A lot of it is familial or it's emotional, right? Like everyone can probably think of those people that Teddy described in their family who are, you only live once, I guess, YOLO, kind of spending all the dollars, which may have been, a pattern they developed from some of the things that had happened in their life earlier on, or there's someone who's very thrifty, right? Of course, going back, some of that was driven. If we think of our grandparents, maybe they lived through the Great Depression, or great grandparents, right? So there's a lot of emotions tied in with money. There's a lot of family, behaviors that are tied in with money. It's not just dollars and cents. And again, I think this is coming back to that point I brought up before about how, as social workers, so many of those things that you're doing already, where you're trying to understand, where some of these behaviors may have come from, trauma that may have existed, things like that, applies just as well in the money space. And you can, kind of do reflective practice on yourself and see maybe where some of these behaviors or thoughts about money or concerns or anxieties came from. So I think, Teddy, I just wanted to highlight that because that's something that, both from an education perspective and the emotional side, that definitely stands out to me from folks I talk with.
yeah, and one thing I wanted to add to all of that is that the thing think about money is, oh, I need to get on a budget. Oh, I should be better about budgeting. I'm sure you probably heard it in the workplace too. It's like, ah, man, I missed my budget this month. And a lot of people don't understand what that means. And that's like a whole other video. I have like workshops and stuff I do on that. But everyone who says I need to be better with my budget, everyone that says like, the budget is a thing, it is. Well, it's a tool, it's a process, but no one actually cares about the budget. What they care about is what the budget does, right? It helps you, stay on track and get you that extra cash at the end of the month. So now you got savings, now you can pay off debt. And hopefully, with today that we're not just talking, like boring you with a whole bunch of details on like the numbers and stuff, but really simplifying it down to the one skill or the few skills and frameworks that you can use to really make the progress both financially and with your mental health, to actually believe that things can change and actually believe that you're not going to have to be stuck in the rut of, oh, I'm just going to have to work for this agency forever and climb the corporate ladder, or I'm just going to have to get the next degree to increase the paycheck just to keep up with inflation. I hope this will, give you some hope. That's really what it's about.
Yeah, definitely. And so maybe going right to it, Teddy, you brought up before, kind of living a rich life. And I think that's a great term, right? It doesn't have to be financially, every single, house you could ever imagine and car you could ever imagine to go to my example, but living a fulfilling life without, the financial stress. But obviously, social workers are not known for making very high incomes, which is again is to your point, a whole separate conversation. We definitely, all want to be advocates there for changing that world, but that's the world most social workers live in today. So how do you kind of square those two things? That desire to live a rich life, but social workers not having these high incomes. How do you kind of bridge that gap?
Yeah, and so usually the way I want to lead with that is a lot of people will, hear the financial concepts, hear like, oh yeah, spend this much, save this much, you'll be fine, right? But I like to kind of share my own experience with this. So my wife and I have been married for 5 years, and we have a daughter. She's turning 3 this year, and we've been on a single income as a social work, single income, and she's a stay-at-home parent, and everyone's like, how can you do that? How can you have a home and a single income and be okay? Like a lot of people I talk to, they're dual income, their kids are grown, and they're making, $120,000 a year, and they can't figure out why they're still in debt. And I tell them like, well, there's a lot of reasons, right? Obviously can't go into the whole thing, but it's possible. And just showing you the steps on doing that is so important. When it comes to this rich life, a lot of us really, well, let's look forward, right? Why do we want to retire? Why do we want to stop working so we can chill on the beach or whatever, right? It's not really about not working. It's about having options. It's about having control over your destiny, that you're not working for the man and all this stuff, but that you actually have the choice to work. At retirement, a lot of people who leave their jobs end up going back because they still want that purpose. They still want that mission that they're working towards. And so retirement isn't about relaxing. It's about finding purpose in your work. And you're able to do that when you have your finances in order. You're probably in the social work field not because of the income, right? We're in it for the outcome, not the income. And if you're able to live a life where you're content, live a life where, you're spending on the things that matter and you're saving on the things that don't, like that will give you the autonomy in your life. That will give you that freedom to, leave a toxic job, leave a toxic workplace, or even stand up to a supervisor or someone who's like really making it hard for you to enjoy what you do. And you don't have to worry about the stress of being let go. You don't have to worry about, settling in your career and all that stuff. And that is just so powerful. That freedom is so powerful. And especially if any of you have gone through the debt freedom process, when you're on the other side, it literally feels like the chains are off. If you're ever blessed enough to get your house paid off early, same thing. And with this, like you don't have to go to work in chains, right? The analogy that like the higher income people use are golden handcuffs, but ours aren't golden. we got that fake gold, but really like we feel a chain because we want to do this work, right? We really want to serve these clients, whether with the VA, the mental health, hospital social work, school social work, whatever field you're in. You want to keep doing that work, but you also want to take care of yourself and take care of your household. Like if you can't take care of what's at home, you're not going to be your best self at work. And yeah, so really having that rich life is a balance of let me handle my finances so that I can have the relationships with friends and family that I want. I'm not always working like 60-hour weeks. I'm not I you know, I'm not working late hours. I can actually go to my kids' recitals, go to my kids' games. Um, things like that, really.
Yeah, I think Teddy, you took the words out of my mouth. I've used almost some of those same ones before. Optionality is so huge at the end of the day. Hopefully that really resonated with folks who are listening. I've heard it's described the same way. Is it's that weight, right? Lifted off your back, those chains lifted off, those handcuffs taken off. When you have the option to do what you want when you want, or the option to change a career that you're not satisfied with, that's a huge option. That's a huge value to you. And so I think that's often the goal that a lot of folks are aiming for is getting to that place where they can get that type of feeling. They can take those chains off. They can really feel empowered. And to your point, yeah, Teddy, it's very unlikely that most of the folks on this call want to just sit on a beach for 30 years at the end of their career. I know that's what people think about with retirement,
Yeah.
but these are purpose-driven people, right? Like social workers are purpose-driven, right? They will want to continue to help. I can almost guarantee most of them in their 60s, 70s, 80s, et cetera. But having that option, not having to choose, a helping career maybe later on in life just because of the salary, but actually being able to choose one where they're most fulfilled, that's an awesome option, right? And so that's the purpose for almost everyone I've talked with, as they set their financial goals, is creating those options, not being boxed in to one path of their life from a financial perspective. So maybe we could get a little bit more specific, Teddy. It would be great. I know you mentioned one example of the couple who's making $120,000 but still in debt. I'm curious if you can kind of share any of just the most common struggles or maybe mistakes or challenges you see with social workers that you work with, like any more specifics that stand out, that might be helpful. And maybe if you could also share, okay, here's how I usually work through those with folks, that would be great too.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say the biggest struggle, of course, when it comes to healthy money management as social workers, as helping professionals, is that spending factor, right? Like we talk about mental health, we talk about taking care of ourselves, self care, because we give a lot of ourselves at work to our clients, to our team, and we have almost, even on those days that suck, we have to put on a mask. We have to be there. We have to be empathetic. We have to be encouraging, even if our life is just in shambles. Um, one of the things that encourages me that I tell myself is that even on our worst days, we're someone's best hope. We're a kid's best hope. We're, an addict's best hope and all this stuff. Um, but we are people too, right? Whenever we get off work, whether it's at the end of the day or even lunchtime, like we just want to take that mask off. We want to just like zone out sometimes. And that's one of the issues because we're putting so much intention towards being that support, that helper at work. A lot of times taking that mask off and really trying to relax and not have to think about all the other things that are stressful in our life, that it could be a coping skill for you, but at the same time, it can also be detrimental to your financial health. What that looks like is like you don't think about the dollars you're spending anymore. You don't think about what's coming in, what's going out. You're just thinking about what can I do right now? And one of the examples I always use is that you're probably having a stressful day in the morning. Maybe your supervisor's onto you, maybe a client spit in your face. I don't know. And now it's lunchtime. You got your sandwich, you got whatever you packed for whatever leftovers you brought. And a coworker's like, hey, we've had a tough morning. You want to go out and eat? Go get yourself some Mexican food, get yourself some sushi, I don't know, and you're spending $20 for your lunch. And that's $20 that you didn't need to spend. And that's only one area. There are other areas like, buying a car that's more than you need just because you want to feel more validated in what you do. Maybe it's, going for that next degree and taking out loans just because you think that's the next step in feeling more valued as a social worker or even as a person. And all these things, you know, to help, treat ourselves and compensate ourselves, it's important, right? That's why we talk about self-care. That's why we need to help ourselves before we help other people. But that that is our weakest point, right? And having some awareness is the way to address it. I can give you all the skills and the tools and all this stuff, and you can white knuckle it. You can, go bare bones, save all the money, but that's not sustainable, right? People going on crash diets, like cutting out all the carbs, cutting out or all the fats or whatever diet, right? It does work for some people, and there's a method to the madness sometimes. But for a lot of people, just getting into it and just thinking, I need a short-term solution. I just need to do something and fix everything as fast as I can. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work. And so I want to talk about the spending tree framework that I've been using, really just conveying and conceptualizing this idea of our spending behaviors. Obviously, there are more clinical terms that I can use, but I want to essentially dumb this down to where it's the saying is like putting the cookies on the shelf where everyone can reach them, right? No matter where you are in your social work journey, maybe you are in your bachelor's program, or maybe you're working on your clinical license. I hope that this is able to resonate with you in terms of, oh my goodness, like this just makes so much sense. So, yeah, I got a handy dandy little image of a tree, and it really is, it really represents how we make decisions, who we are. Starting off with the very superficial stuff, the leaves, right? This is the stuff you see. You can see when the leaves are green. You can see when they're orange. You can see when they fall off and all this stuff. Those are our spending behaviors. The behaviors are the symptoms, are the things that we see that either cause us problems or can really drive us into financial success. But those leaves, those behaviors come from somewhere. They're driven by something. And every behavior we have, every choice we make is driven by some emotion, whether it's stress, maybe you're seeking validation, maybe you're just like compulsive with, your behaviors and things like that, and you don't know those emotions, but they're there. There's subconscious, and there's, more of those explicit emotions that are clear. You could be happy and you're just like, you know, at a bridal shower, you're like, yeah, let me give all the gifts, let me do all this stuff. There is always emotion behind a behavior. Even if most of the behavior is logic, the logic produces emotion, or the emotion leads to logic, whatever. But then you think about, the trunk. What holds the whole tree up, right? It's who we are, it's our identity. It's how, our habits, and like really what we've grown to become, just how those emotions represent in our life, how we respond, and all that stuff. But really, the most important part, and the stuff that I hope that this video and some of the other resources that we have will help you identify, are those roots, right? You, the health of the leaves, the health of the whole tree is based on the health of the roots. And these roots are our triggers, our history, the things, the cultural norms, the societal norms we're used to, and our habits. And by really just not necessarily always digging up the roots, but just understanding, acknowledging how those roots are built. Maybe you got roots that go way deep down, and you really have to do some personal work to find out what is all down there. Or maybe there's some, just a complex network of things that go on in your life. Maybe you're going through disability while trying to be a social worker, or, your marriage is in shambles and you're working with clients who's also going through some marital issues or relational issues, and you don't know why you're getting triggered. You don't know why you're, resorting to these other spending behaviors. But as you're able to become more self-aware and see what those roots are, see what those triggers are, then you have a starting point for actually addressing all the other money stuff. Very rarely is money like the problem. Money issues are almost always a symptom of, a pattern of behavior or something like that. There are, of course, circumstances where, may have emergencies and things like that. But for the majority of people who constantly complain or constantly think that there is no growth, there's no way to get ahead, it just has to do with a mental shift. And I hope, like I said, I hope this framework at least gives you a little bit of insight into, we're not as complex as we make ourselves out to be. It's all about understanding what's really driving us, our identity, our behaviors, and all of that stuff. So
Yeah, I really like, Teddy, this framework and kind of this analogy of the tree. I think it connects a lot of the things we touched on, throughout like the first parts of this conversation, and just how like the most visible parts, yeah, those spending behaviors doesn't tell the full story, right? That's just the visible thing, the leaves, as you mentioned, changing colors or, kind of dropping at some point, things like that. But it's really so much triggered by those roots, those behaviors, those kind of emotional triggers, the history that we all have from a financial perspective. We talked about the family and the emotions. So much of it is driven by that level. And if you don't, kind of confront that and understand that, it's unlikely that those leaves are going to change, that those spending behaviors are going to change if you don't really understand where they're coming from and how they're being triggered and where everything kind of began, and those types of things. So I think it's a great analogy for kind of uniting a lot of the pieces that we talked about. I hope it's kind of resonating with folks that it's not just about, cut out the spending, don't worry about anything else. It's about, kind of us understanding this full, spending tree framework that you've laid out and really understanding how all the pieces connect to each other. So I think you've done a great job, Teddy, identifying kind of some of the reasons why people, overspend. A few of the different kind of driving causes of that for most of the folks you've worked with. But I guess, kind of getting to the tactical side, if someone is ready to start, they've been, inspired by what we shared so far, they want to get started tactically. Where do they get started? Do they just start slashing their budget, right? Not spending, any money eating out, not, buying any streaming services, I don't know, turning off the lights, things like that. Where do you advise someone like takes a tactical step, Teddy, to, kind of start, taking the steps on this journey here?
Yeah. So when it comes to right addressing the overspending stuff, I do not recommend going bare bones and like cutting everything out. That is very effective, right? You can make a lot of progress doing that, but what is the sustainability? And the thing we need to think about is are we just need to move from complacent or just like, spending here and there and not thinking about it just to becoming intentional. Are these spending, decisions based on adding value to my life, or am I just feeling like it's convenient? Maybe I just feel good and I want to spend. It's important to become intentional. But what does that even mean? Right? This means to spend on the things that matter to you while saving on the things that don't. So, if you really don't need a 2024 like pickup truck and you can settle for a 2016, Toyota Camry, then do that, right? If you really want to spend time with your family and spend on those experiences, spend on those vacations, you can do that. But you do have to save on the areas that don't matter, right? Maybe you don't need to get the highest end clothing. Maybe you can go to the thrift store. A lot of the clothes there, especially for women, there's a lot of new clothes there. I'm actually jealous that my wife gets a lot better clothes than I do
It's
at the
the
thrift
cooler
store.
thing now too, right?
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's like trending and so it's a lot more socially
yeah.
acceptable, which is good. But yeah, like your car insurance, like who we just get car insurance because we have to, but just shop it around. If you could save $100 a month, if you pay every 6 months, something like that, you'll get savings too. Different areas, just arguing with your internet provider, arguing with your phone provider, because those are things that we're spending on anyways. And if we could save it as we're going, like that's awesome. Um, yeah, so think about what is adding value to your life, right? Is it really most effective if I'm ordering Uber Eats every other night, or if I, order out, if I can really just cook at home? Sometimes it is. As you're, increasing your time responsibilities, whether it's at work, at home, and all that stuff, perhaps it is valuable to have food shipped to you so that you can spend those extra 30 minutes or that extra hour with your kids if you're working those long hours and stuff. Or maybe you're a social worker that's getting into business and you're earning a lot more in your business and you're kind of wasting your time with say mowing the lawn or cleaning the house. Then you can delegate those stuff. You can hire help at 15, 20, $25 an hour to save you the mental stress of doing it, to give you more time, like I said, with your family, with your relationships, with the things that you actually want to spend time with. So I actually have a whole webinar I did about the value of your time. I don't know if we're able to share that with the community.
Yeah, we
I'd love
definitely
to
can.
just give that
Yeah.
resource too, but yeah, it's all about being efficient with our money, right? If we have $1,000, we want to spend all $1,000 adding value to our life. We don't want to waste it on like a meal that we just got out of convenience, or, that snack machine at work that, we don't really need that soda. We don't really need those candy bars, things like that. And by being efficient with your money, then you'll see everything else, going away in terms of mental stress. You'll actually be able to have some extra savings to retire and to all that stuff. This is just a side note just to give y'all some hope. But as a social worker, y'all have a very good chance of, retiring with $1 million in your retirement. And that's wild to think about. One of the studies that I always refer to, it's a study that Ramsey Solutions did on millionaires throughout the United States. And this is not all, related to this stuff, but I hope it gives you some hope that it's possible. And so the top 5 careers are engineers, it's it's engineers, this is out of order, so I'm sorry. Engineers, accountants, teachers, management, and attorneys. And what's really interesting is that teachers is number 3, the most frequently occurring millionaire. Now, why is that, right? They got pensions, and social workers have pensions too. But teachers have a process, they have a plan, and they just contribute regularly. And if you can do that too, if you're able to find the extra $500 a month in your budget to put towards retirement, it's very likely that you'll be a millionaire when you retire. And so I hope that gives you some help. My wife and I are on track to doing that as a single income home, right? Even if my wife never goes back to work and, we incur all those expenses, we're on track for that. And so I hope that gives you help, that I'm not just some person giving theory, right? Like, I've been through it, I'm living it. And just to show that, it just takes a little bit of, mental work, some personal work, and implementing some of these skills, strategies, changes in your relationships, hopefully will get you there.
Yeah, I think that's great, Teddy. And I think a couple things definitely stuck out to me. I think the concept of intentionality we've talked about throughout this talk, but is just so crucial, right? Like, we all get into these automatic patterns in life where it's, I always go out with my coworkers to lunch or something like that, to use that example, or I always buy Uber Eats on, Fridays and Saturdays or something like that, because to celebrate the week, right? And it's just reevaluating, like, are these places, where I'm just doing it because it's automatic, or are they the truly most important things for me to spend money on in my life, or that they unlock, to your point, Teddy, more time with my family, things like that. And so I think hopefully what you're hearing from Teddy is, like, it's not just a no, no, no on all these things. It's, I'll repeat his words, spend where you find the value and the enjoyment, and save where it's not important, right? I think a lot of folks get in the pattern of spend across everywhere, while not, kind of being intentional about, okay, these are the 1 or 2 areas that really make me happy and make my relationships with my family and, my friends and, myself better. And these are the 8 areas where, I have to make a car payment, or I have to have a car, for example, or I have to have car insurance. But those are areas that are not exciting to me, or, it just gets me from point A to point B. So don't overspend in those areas, right? Just go, be more intentional about the spending in those areas. Of course, still be aware of the spending in the areas that you're passionate about. But, again, it's not just a cross everything off the list type of solution, as Teddy's, alluded to a few times. That's the fad diet, right? And certainly a couple percent of people could probably pull that off, kind of just cut everything out, cold turkey. It works for very few people, but it's just not sustainable. And so you want to find that sustainable thing that lets you have that financial wellness, but also just that happiness too in your life, by spending in those couple areas that matter, and again, saving in the areas that are not as important to you. So that definitely really stuck out to me, Teddy. And so maybe one last kind of question area or topic that I have is, we talked about a little bit before, social workers are obviously not very highly paid. We've obviously been living through, over the past couple of years, some really high inflation, for most folks, the highest they've ever seen in their working lives, in the past 20, 30 years. And, salaries have not gone up as much for social workers. And so isn't part of this, kind of campaigning on a macro perspective to get paid more, to get more money, so that we start from a higher point, with our salaries before we take out all these expenses? Or should we focus, more on the, if you call it micro side, focus on the details, our own lives? Just What do you advise folks there? What do you advise our audience listening today of where they should focus their energy? More like advocacy or more my personal life, my own financial picture?
Absolutely. I mean, it could be both, right? It could be, you know, like advocating for better pay and all this stuff, maybe unions and things like that. But when you really, really bring it to what has the most impact over your life, it's the decisions we make, it's the people we are. And absolutely, inflation is killing us, right? Food's going up, rent and housing, all that stuff's going up. And absolutely plays a factor in our personal finances. But these are big forces, right? Like job, workplace stuff, like the job market, the pay staying low while expenses are going up. Those are big forces. That's very, very difficult for 1, 10, even 100 social workers to change. It's not impossible, right? We're in this work because we can make macro level change as well. But what has the quickest and the most powerful, profound impact on your life? Who is the person that's with you 24/7 to help you do that? It's you. You have so much control over your life, and a lot of us just give that control away. The term that we use in like psychology and social workspace is the difference between external and internal locus of control. Where are we attributing our circumstances? Like, is it our environment? Is it our health? Is it things that we can't control? Or can we take it into our own hands and like, okay, I'm going to accept that I can't control these things. That's one of the things in addiction recovery. Like, accept the things that you can't control, but get the courage, have the courage to change the things that you can. If you have a toxic relationship, you can't change the other person, but you can change your boundaries with that person. You can change how you represent yourself, how conduct yourself. Just like you can't always change the whole agency and getting everyone a raise, but you can look at new jobs. You can further your career. Maybe you want to start a business. Maybe you want to do all these other things. You have that control. It is your life. And that's the thing I really want to focus on, especially because a lot of the conversations I've had, people just give in to, oh, I'm just never going to get ahead. I have 20 grand in student loans. I'm just not going to pay it off. And I tell those people, I've seen people with 5 times as much student loans as you and pay it off without making $100,000 a year, right? Like, it is out there. We just don't see it. And I hope that, my story and the stories that I've shared resonate with you. I hope that they really give you hope that, oh, like, maybe I can change things. Maybe things can be different. I know I'm spewing a lot of like kind of like one-off like facts and or sayings and stuff like that. But one of the things that really stuck with me is that we question every belief we have except the ones we actually believe. Like those we don't think to question because they're so innate, they're so ingrained in us. And I hope, a presentation like this, someone in your life just pivoting what you think can be normal, what you think can be possible. I hope that pushes you out of your boundaries to actually become wealthy, right? In your life, in your relationships, hopefully with your money too. Like that's part of why I also started a business. Like taking that into my own hand, helping people directly. I don't have to deal with the upper management, red tape, and all that stuff. It's my business. I can reach out to whoever I want, however I want, and serve them and make money doing it. So yeah, my biggest thing, the takeaway that you get from this, hopefully, if you believe that something can happen, if you have hope that things can change, then you'll actually make the change. You'll actually take the steps. Otherwise, like doing it blind, it's not going to work. It's not going to last. It's kind of like if you don't believe in the outcome, you don't believe that you can get there, then you genuinely are wasting your time because what are you working for if you don't even believe in the outcome? So, yeah, like
Yeah.
just focusing on that micro level stuff is most impactful for sure.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, Teddy. And I think you've alluded to this a few times. So I'll switch the slide here for the folks watching this on video. But you've kind of talked about a few other webinars you have available, a few other resources. Maybe now would be a great time to share how folks can kind of learn more about Lion Lamb Money, what you're doing. Some of the other resources out there that they can grab. Hopefully if they're inspired to kind of take that next step here, right, and make some changes.
Yeah, and so I wanted to keep it really simple. I could, give you like 5 or 10 resources, but just to really make it most applicable to what we talked about today, I created a course called Overspending Insight, which is understanding the why behind our overspending behaviors. And very briefly touch on that spending tree framework. I just highlighted because it's a lot easier to understand, but it's built off the inventory step in the 12 steps of recovery, right? But there are also other parts of our spending behaviors that we need to be aware of, which is like marketing efforts that companies use and all that stuff, the inventory, the marketing efforts, understanding the why, and then you can start looking at the behaviors and all the new stuff to really replace some of the unhealthy spending habits. And so if you use this QR code or you type in lionlandmoney.com slash overspending dash insight, you'll go straight to the course. You'll be able to preview the first two lessons, but I'll tell you this, after those 2 lessons, you'll hit a paywall, but if you use the code AGENTS, you don't even need a credit card. It'll give you access to the rest of the course. It's, I think 4 or 5-part series, and there's a few other things at the very tail end of it, because I do have a bonus course on that and then like some other resources on the back end of that. But really, like, I want this to be as accessible to people. I absolutely could have charged. I actually initially planned to charge for that course $150 for the course. And if that course just helped you say no to one $100, $200 purchase, it paid for itself. But I was like, no, like just I want people to actually experience the change. I want them to see this for themselves. And so, it doesn't cost me to give it away to y'all, right? Giving you the resources to better your life and to help improve your families, help improve the families of your clients and all that stuff. So yeah, make sure to use the code AGENTS, of course, as agents of change. Just so that helps me know where y'all are coming from. But also, yeah, it's a free resource for y'all. I don't know how long it could take you. I recommend spending at least a week or 2 weeks on it, spacing it out, really being a lot more introspective on your spending habits, your roots, and all that stuff. But yeah, all the content in there. Some of the feedback I've gotten is just like, wow, I never thought about that. Especially when it comes to like the inventory and the reasons why we spend. But yeah, I won't bore you with like the other resources I got, but if you like, I know we mentioned the value of the time workshop. Alex and Megan, I can send that to y'all if that's something you want to share with
Yeah,
your
definitely.
groups
Yeah,
and
in
your
our
community.
so obviously we'll have folks listening to this on the podcast, on YouTube, some through our continuing education platform, but we'll link all those resources, whether it's in the description of the podcast or the YouTube, or as extra resources in the continuing education course. You'll be able to find it right below this video. So definitely check those out. And yeah, thank you, Teddy, for sharing these resources too. I'm pretty confident folks in our community will get a lot of value out of it. And I think you really summed it up well. Even if it stops you from making, one or two purchases, just being more intentional, right? We're not asking for or monumental change up front, right? Just question a few of those purchases, question a few of the areas you spend. That's a great step. That is an awesome step. And that will build hopefully this positive feeling, this positive feedback loop where it eventually it becomes normal. It becomes something that's just part of the way, you address, you kind of think about your spending. You see those triggers, you see those emotions, you feel them, you can recognize it in the moment instead of after the fact saying, oh, I wish I hadn't spent that money on that thing. You'll be able to kind of recognize it sooner. So I think this inventory is going to be really helpful for a lot of folks in the community. So thanks, Teddy, for sharing it. And we'll definitely link it out in all of the places as well for the folks who are either listening in or joining in other channels.
Yeah, I love it. I appreciate even just, y'all giving me the opportunity to share this, to share the message, share the hope with your community. And hopefully as you, the viewer or listener, goes through this course and actually understand some of the things that's going on in your life, you make the changes in your life, you could bring that same hope to other people, right? And I think that's where we get a lot of value, being able to serve one another.
Definitely. Great to end on that, Teddy. Well, thank you, Teddy, so much for taking the time to talk with us, to talk with our community. I know we were talking about this before, but I think there are probably some future parts to this series in the future, so stay tuned. To everyone in the audience, there's a lot more we can cover, but please also share your feedback too on things in the financial space you'd like to learn more about with Agents of Change. You can share that in a few different ways, whether it's through the comments, of course, or you can share that by emailing us at contact@agentsofchangeprep.com. If that's easier, just reach out to us. Let us know what you want to see more in this space, questions you have. Or, of course, feel free to check out Teddy's website, reach out to him there if you have very specific financial questions. He can help you as well. But thank you so much, Teddy, for joining. I really appreciate you sharing this topic as an expert.
Yeah, and thank you, Alex. You were awesome in terms of, just hosting and just, your humility with everything. You're just like y'all don't see this, right? But every all the steps leading up to this call just was amazing. And I definitely appreciate all of that. And the mission that y'all have with Agents of Change, just so powerful in, supporting our social workers and really investing in them, right? And so, yeah, I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure being able to serve this way, and I had a lot of fun doing it. So, yeah, hopefully we can do more in the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Teddy. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.